Hey guys, this is Alvin Taveras, founder of Build to Rent. And 3 years ago, I bought a high appreciating property in a high appreciating market. The problem is we're no longer in an obvious high appreciating market. We may go up a little bit, may go down a little bit, but we can no longer bank on appreciation. So the question is, how has my property performed over the last 3 years? And how is it going to perform moving forward? Let's go ahead and do a deep dive. Okay, so when we're banking on appreciation, we're really looking at two things, the market appreciation and the property appreciation. Now, you always want to focus on the market before anything else, and that's timing and location. So we already knew where we were 3 years ago, so I'm not going to dive into the timing of it, but I do want to talk to you a little bit about the location. Let's go ahead and dive into Google Maps. When we look at Southwest Florida, also coastal, also being developed, but obviously not developed to the same extent as Southeast Florida. So when you're looking at parity, obviously Southwest Florida is going to have more value and have more room for appreciation. The same is true when you look at what's happening north and south of here. So what you see is a couple of these icons are properties that I own. And I like this region quite a bit because it's kind of sandwiched into emerging markets. We start with Marco Island, Naples, Bonita Springs, and Estero. These, as you can tell, is obviously right along the water here and right between 75. This is a very expensive market, very limited space, and prices sell for at a premium. When you start working your way up to Fort Myers, you now start getting more of, Fort Myers more of the cultural heart of Southwest Florida, but Cape Coral is by far the largest city here. So a lot of the growth right now in this area is happening in Cape Coral and in Lehigh. So, but everything below this area is super expensive. Almost 30% more expensive to be south of Estero than it is to be in Cape Coral or Lehigh. So obviously it's going to be a lot more expensive when you start looking in this area as well. You have your Tampa, you have your Clearwater. Then you go further south, you have your Bradenton, your Sarasota. And then when you get down to Venice, Venice is about the last spot where it's still somewhat affordable. And then south of that is when it actually really gets affordable. So this area, you're going to call it multiple different names. You can call it Port Charlotte. You can call it Englewood. You can call it Rotunda West. I'm calling it Englewood because that's where the property is actually located. But the region goes by all three names. So obviously we have the same benefits of a Venice. You're close to the beach. You're right off of Route 41, coastal, more suburban community. But the prices are so much cheaper. So when you compare this area of Englewood compared to Sarasota, the average price in Sarasota is going to be 600 plus. Here in Englewood, you can get properties around 300K. And I specifically like this property right here, which is what I ended up buying, because you can bike ride to the beach and not be in a flood zone. So for me, the value that you get from that perspective is super strong. Now, here's some of the decisions that I had to make at that moment. Right now, there's not much of a price difference between Englewood and this area of Port Charlotte. So in this area of Port Charlotte is where we're going to have a lot more commercial activities, is where there's going to be a lot more employment. In this area of Englewood, you're going to be much more close to the beach, and people are going to be able to pay a premium to live. Generally, your house is going to be more expensive on this Englewood side than the Port Charlotte side, but generally you're going to have a lot more employment, a lot more normal residents on the Port Charlotte side. So I went ahead and in a high appreciation market, I banked on appreciation. And I'll zoom in a little bit just so you can see more of this region. So here, right behind the property is where you see the bike path, so you can take all the way down to the beach here. And so I'm specifically looking at this Rotunda West area. So Rotunda West used to have some vacant lots. It's all built up now. And now you're starting to see that the homes inside of Rotunda West sell for $30,000, $40,000 more than the properties just outside of Rotunda West. So I isolated this property. I picked this one because it's right next to where Rotunda West is. And this is where that growth is happening next. So I see the growth happening above, happening just outside the community. and just a little bit south as well. So it's in a very high growth area. So the question is, how could you figure out how to identify markets anywhere in Florida? So today we're going to look at 3 different supermarket chains to figure out where that community is on a developmental scale. So we're going to start by looking at Dollar Generals. And so here's the thing. When we look at Dollar Generals, we know what it is. It's a dollar store, but they have a frozen food section. They have a little bit of fresh produce, right? But we know obviously by the name and by the branding and everything that's inside the store that it's more of a low budget type of supermarket, if you can call it a supermarket. But here's the thing. When you are looking at an area, if they have a Dollar General, you don't have to run. If they only have a Dollar General, you have to run, right? You guys follow me? So Dollar General can be located anywhere, in a nice market, an average market, and a bad market. Generally, if there's only a Dollar General around, it means you're too early. And so we're going to go ahead and type in the requirements. We're going to go ahead and type this in of the requirements for a Dollar General to be in a community. There are a couple of things that we're going to note right away. Their square footage is super small. This works great in a very rural setting. And so again, the square footage needed, super small. The parking lot requirements, super small. And they actually need a lot less population in the area. And they also need a lot less traffic going to that area. So a Dollar General can exist anywhere. Some Dollar Generals can even be on septic tanks and everything. So they can show up anywhere. But generally speaking, if you only have a General, you're too early. Your options are either land banking or you're doing trailer parks. But I would not invest in a market that only has a Dollar General. Next supermarket chain is going to be your Publix. And Publix is absolutely key. So here's the thing. If you're in Florida and you do not have a Publix, I'm a little bit concerned because your Publix is your baseline. That's how you know you're a real neighborhood in Florida. And I'm being objective here because listen, if you're from Florida, you might fight Publix for a little bit. At some point, you're going to have to cave in. Publix is the best, right? So you're going to go to Publix. So when you look at the Publix requirements, Publix is going to be a little bit more stringent as to what they allow. So obviously, they're going to need a larger space. They're going to need more parking lots. And they need a lot more population. So here they're looking at 5,000 to 8,000 people per 3-mile radius. So they're going to look for a little bit more population density. And they also look at the income. So they're aiming for at least 45,000 as being the average median income. And so 45,000 now raising the bar a little bit means that in a market where a Dollar General can survive, it's not necessarily that a Publix can survive there. But if you're an emerging market, best believe there better be a Publix there, or I'm questioning that market. So if you guys know anything about me, you guys know that I care a lot about bringing my son and my family along with the journey. And we always like to be as transparent as possible. So I took my son out to the property. This property was rented out for 3 years and now it's currently vacant. And the house looked great. The surrounding area looked great. So a couple of things that I liked about this property is, so we talked about the market being high appreciating, but the property itself also has some higher end features. So as soon as you walk up to the property, you see the double doors, you see the higher end flooring throughout, the window blinds, the quartz countertop, the nicer kitchen, the shaker white cabinets, and just overall, I mean, look at this bathroom. This bathroom looks gorgeous. And so here's the thing. I paid $300K for this property 3 years ago. So this is an absolute steal. And this is a 4-bedroom house in a very nice neighborhood. So this has all the bells and whistles, all those little small little upgrades that you could get in the property. This house has, again, tiled bathrooms, ceiling fans, the cam lights, the tray ceilings, the nice baseboards. This house has all the nice things you'd want in a property, a nice backyard. Again, you have a bike path at the back of the property where you can bike ride to the beach without being in a flood zone. So the property overall looks absolutely amazing. And by the way, this is after the property being rented out for 3 years. It still looks this good. So I'm still optimistic in the long run that we'll get back to an appreciating market. And this is a perfect property to take advantage of that. So we have 2 Publixes in the area, and my son and I went to the property on our way to go kayaking. So we saw the property, cool, and we had to do a stop at Publix. And guys, if you're not from Florida, I got to tell you, the way to enjoy a Publix is to go to their deli counter and you have to ask for the chicken tender sandwiches. So you get a 12-inch stuffed sandwich for $9. So the point is, we got our sub, we headed over to the kayak. And one of the things that you'll see about this area is that it's special. So there's beaches nearby, there's places to kayak, you can go fishing, and you can just go ahead and have a good time. And here's the thing, like when you're in this part of the country, it's pure freedom. People are moving here for the high quality of life. The entire day, I didn't see a single police officer. People are out on their boat having a good time. It's great weather. And this is an area that long run, people are going to reminisce of how great it was at this time period, because eventually you will get more dense. So you have to enjoy it while you're here. And then again, take advantage of the appreciation long term. So let's go ahead and dive into numbers. And I'm sharing you the numbers of the actual performance of the property. So I paid $300K. I have an appraisal already for $360K. So we know it appreciated about $60K over the last 3 years. I put a down payment of 25%, and we know where the rents were. I rented them out for $2,250. And here's the thing, rents have been flat for 3 years. So I did not increase the rent for those 3 years. It's been flat. The actual vacancy loss is actually 5%. So it's been rented out for 3 years, and then it's been vacant for 2 months. So that's 5%. And then we have all the actual data. So here's the actual performance of the property. Again, we have the appreciation already, but then we have the cash flow, the principal pay down, the tax benefits, and you end up getting about $95,000 in net wealth being created over just the first year. If we zoom out and look at the trajectory over 5 years, I'm going to be able to do a cash out refi of about $185,000, right? This is if everything stays exactly the way it was. The performance of it, I got a 5.7 cash on cash, which is good. The big thing for me is the IRR. Again, because of that appreciation, I will eventually get cash out refi. I will eventually sell it probably in a couple more years. And then I'm looking at the total net return, including capturing the appreciation. So this overall has been a good property for the first 3 years of ownership. But now we're no longer in a market where we can bank on the previous year's success to determine the future success. Let's go ahead and dive into numbers and be a little bit more pessimistic. So guys, if we're being super realistic about the numbers, we're going to go ahead and change a couple of things. So let's go ahead and anticipate a complete collapse of the market. Let's go ahead and take away all of its gain. Again, it appreciated about $60K in the last 3 years. Let's go ahead and take us back to zero, back to the original price of $300K. So all the appreciation is gone. Let's go ahead and also take off, let's say there's massive rent reduction, and I got to bring the rent down to $2,000. That's $250,000 less than what it was actually renting for. Let's be pessimistic and take it off. And then let's go ahead and also double the vacancy rate. So now we're doubling the vacancy rate. We're at 5. Let's go ahead and make it 10 just to see how the numbers perform. So if we're being super pessimistic, which means all of the appreciation is gone, rents drop, and we also get a little bit more vacancy, we're now at a stage where we're still cash flowing a little bit. Now, this cash flow isn't great, but I'm not funding the deal. And one of the important things I want to get across as far as the benefit of real estate is that if I'm putting money into a 401k, I'm funding it each and every month and not getting a real return. Whatever it goes up in value doesn't actually matter because I haven't received the money, right? When we talk about real estate, you're funding it once and never again. Real estate should be self-funding. And so this cash flow is saying that the tenants paying down the mortgage is enough and I don't have to contribute to that deal. With a 401k, you're always contributing to that deal. And so with this very slim cash flow, but again, this is worst case scenario and we're still cash flowing. So if we look at the loan analysis, we're going to say, okay, 3 years have not been a good performance, but eventually we will get back to an appreciating market. And then over the 5 years from now, even if we lost all of the appreciation, we're going to end up being around $440,000 in the next 5 years. We're also going to be paying off the debt over the next 5 years. So we're going to have a net equity of about 234. If I do a cash out refi, leaving 25% still in the deal, I am now still able to take out $123,000. Again, this is after losing $60,000 in today's equity. I can still get that back over the next 5 years. Again, because the market will eventually rebound, get stronger, and the tenant's paying down my mortgage. And here's a good thing. Again, worst case scenario, we take all the L's on appreciation, on rents, turnover is higher. We're still able to do a sales analysis and sell the property for about 132. That's not including cash flow. When we look at the total IRR, again, this is worst case scenario. Rents dropped, price dropped, and turnover went up. I'm still getting a net profit of $207,000 even after all of these L's. So here's the key, is you want to be able to survive. So in this case, I put 25% down and there was a healthy cash flow. That's enough for me to survive. Now, would I pay $360 for this deal today? No, probably not. But when I look back at the last 3 years, am I proud of this move? Absolutely. Because when I look at the worst case scenario, I still end up winning. So the way to play it today is you have to have a healthy cash flow. A healthy cash flow allows you to survive and thrive no matter what happens in the market. All right, so that's it. Thank you for watching the video all the way through to the end. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I'll be answering to each and every one of them. And if you have any questions for me or my team, go to buildtorrent.com and we'll be happy to schedule a consultation. Thank you and take care.